Welcome to Prime Suspects, alongside Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr. I'm your host, Matt Landis. Adam, college football week 10 and NFL week 9 and now in the books. How was the football weekend overall, and what were your biggest results?
It was a decent weekend. Sunday morning was probably the best results. The afternoon, not so friendly. People were on the Bills. Oddly enough, they were on the Raiders, like +2, +2.5. But the early games, Vikings showing up for play of the week again from Saturday night. Panthers showing up, which was a late play of the Sunday morning with the money line there, having seen some pretty sharp people play the Carolina money line there sneakily. It was a rough week on the NBA, funny enough, and the NFL a little bit, but college was good. And, it was just one of those weeks that there were some red figures on the afternoon stuff that sort of brought us back to earth. But, we live another week and fight through it.
Well, speaking of those upset wins by the Vikings and Panthers, the Circa Survivor pool is getting shallower courtesy of the NFC North, with those Packers and Lions losses wiping out more than 13% of the field entering week 10. Adam, all that considered, how are your Survivor entries faring?
I was good, thanks to your hometown, Matt. I looked at it 3 or 4 weeks ago and identified this as potentially a Los Angeles week. The fact that I was in California for the races, it just sort of all played out. Not putting all the eggs in one basket. I did play 2 on the Rams and 1 on the Chargers. Chargers just, wanted to make it look hard in that first half. Got up and got through. The Rams was nice and easy and happened like it should. But yeah, I'm still alive with 3. I do feel like I'm dancing through raindrops a little bit with the 3 that I have right now. So I'll just continue firing on, try and be a little bit generic. But this week was all about just not overthinking it. I'd seen it 3 or 4 weeks out that this was just 1 week to play the LA teams. It was an opportunity. I know you can, I think each of them have 1 spot coming up over the next 3 or 4 weeks where they can be used. So still alive with 3 out of 1,700 odd.
Well, a good weekend for the LA teams in football, an even better one for LA's baseball team. But first, Adam, on a less exciting note, it does seem warranted to call out here that Prime Sports experienced some downtime over the weekend. What insight can you share in terms of how it all happened and how it was resolved?
So technical issues, I had no idea about it until I saw the topics for this thing, and I thought I better ask this morning. But we did some deployments last week, caught up on the memory side of it. They added some memory and they fixed it, and everything seems fine now and they're on top of it. But I tell you what, taking bets is easy, placing bets is easy. This technical world in the beginning, I mean, it's just insane when something can work for 10 weeks straight and then suddenly just goes down, and then you've got everyone in a room trying to work out what the hell happened and how to fix it. But yeah, it's been a rough sort of 2 to 4 weeks with some of these issues that we've been adding some same game parlay product, which was the back end of this. We added some of this stuff last week in the States, and it just caught us at the worst time on the weekend, but we've worked out what it is and hopefully solve the issue going forward.
All right, onward and upward. And Joe, as we alluded to, wins by the Chargers and Rams were footnotes when it comes to the sporting weekend that was in Los Angeles, with the Dodgers repeating as World Series champions in dramatic fashion, to say the least. What are your top takeaways from a classic series and the 2025 baseball season as a whole?
I am bitterly disappointed that my futures bet on the asteroid to end it all in LA and Toronto did not cash. As a true Phillies fan, I got on the Toronto bandwagon, and I feel like I owe a apology to Jesse and the entire country of Canada as well, because I feel like I jinxed them. But I'll tell you what, great series as far as baseball is concerned. It's not great when the season-long public favorite for futures bets wins. It's not great when the series-long favorite to win wins. It was amazing to see Toronto come back, especially after that 18-inning game, and make a series of it and make it a better betting market. Seeing how Toronto rebounded from that game and then won the following game, outstanding. I understand from Adam, the Sharks were on that game anyway, so that was probably really smart. Made me feel like I was smart. For baseball betting, the profile is great. LA being in there gave a huge profile. And we even managed to capture the imagination of the suburb of the United States by having Toronto in there. That should have been good for overall volume. When it comes down to it, all the people who want to whine that Los Angeles is just buying championships, they were 1 run better. congratulations to them. I thought overall great for baseball and hopefully was good for betting all around for the industry.
All right. Well, good thing I'm not wearing any of my USC gear today. So we will carry on and pivot from the gridiron and the diamonds to the racetrack. Adam, as my fellow Angelinos were gearing up for a captivating finish to the baseball season, you were just down the I-5 in Del Mar attending and betting on the Breeders' Cup, which you've called your favorite betting days of the year. So for those of us who don't closely follow horse racing, break down what makes the Breeders' Cup such a special event, how you approach handicapping it, and how those handicaps fared for you this past weekend.
Yeah, so the Breeders' Cup is really the World Championships of horse racing, where you bring horses from all over the world, bred all over the world, to run on the dirt and the turf in the US. Sure, I'll get this number wrong, but I think they're about 25 to 28 years they've been doing this. Big races with the best of the young babies on Friday, and then all the best of the world on Saturday. Friday, I loved the card. I got a red eye in from Costa Rica Thursday morning, read what I could do, had lunch with some known gamblers in San Diego, headed by Roxy. Managed to get myself an invite to his box for day one. And I love Friday's card. And I entered the contest. It's 10,000 an entry. 2,500 goes into the pool of the players for prize money. And then you have 7,500 real money to bankroll your plays. I'd circled a horse for Friday, was 30 or 40 to 1 in the morning with an even money favorite. The even money favorite got scratched. What do you know? Still 30 to 1 when the race showed up. So I went pretty hard and got myself in a good position, in second position on day one, which also led to being the highest money winner on Friday that was based at the track. So I also got an entry into January's Pegasus Challenge in Miami. So I'll be off to the races in Gulfstream in January. And then great day drinking margaritas, go home, and then get ready for Saturday. Didn't like the card as much Saturday. It showed, got absolutely destroyed in the first 8 races. Had about 40,000 at the end of Friday. I was down to about 16,000 with one race to go on Saturday. Pushed in all the chips. And what do you know? Found another winner. So ended up 12th and 18th in the contest. They paid out the top 20. Left the racetrack with a couple of stacks and had a great time. So while I would have been happy if I'd missed the winner in that last 2 great days, chatted with Roxy for 2 full days, which, again, anytime you get to have conversations and drinks with someone as legendary as him, it's a great day. Met lots of new people across the way because, again, when you stand with a legend and sit there with that all day, you get to meet all kinds of people that have known him for the last 30, 40 years in this industry as well. So I would have been okay going home with a break square, but found the winner in the last and it just boosted it. But I always say Sunday Masters and the Breeders' Cup 2-day racing are my favorite times of the year. I'm a horse guy at heart and love to gamble. And this brings those two worlds together very much so. So yeah, successful weekend.
All right. Well played on your part. And I think that time with Roxy was probably the most plus EV portion of the entire weekend. I think you got us in the ballpark, by the way, when you estimated how long the Breeders' Cup has been taking place. If real-time research is serving me correctly here, it has been held for 42 years as of the 2025 event, with that first one taking place in 1984. Don't tell Joe it happened in Hollywood Park. So LA continues to be dominating this episode. But I think that's going to change in a moment because, Joe, we're going to come right back to you and address the elephant in the room that a lot has been made of horse racing's popularity declining in America in recent memory. So what do you think can be done to bring back interest in racing, especially among younger audiences?
Okay, first, before I jump in with my TED Talk on that one, I want to know, do we have video of Adam and his winner coming in on the 9th race on that one? Because if it's half as dramatic as his runner last year in the Breeders' Cup, get you fucking rip out. I mean, first of all, where's the merch on that? And well done, Adam. The other thing is, lucky being in Roxy's box. I'd probably bust tables, not really, to be in Roxy's box. And I can only imagine the cast of characters that were in there. So good on him. It must have been an outstanding weekend. Horse racing. You know what horse racing's problem is? The people who run horse racing, their minds are still, I'm going to be generous and still say that they're stuck in the 20th century, although a lot of them are stuck in the 19th century. Dealing with them on a political basis, on a regulatory basis, is a pain in the ass. They are the welfare moms of the gaming industry. And they're always telling us like, oh, I remember when horse racing was 15% of the gambling industry in the United States. That's great. It isn't anymore. But you know what horse racing is? It is freaking exciting. And the problem that they have is that television wise, because everything's television, let's remember that. Television wise, they still don't cover it. Kudos to NBC in investing and going long on the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup and other races. The problem that they have is there's so much air in the schedule. Okay. When you watch race day, like at the Kentucky, I mean, you're talking about a sport that really, when you kick off with the Kentucky Derby, NBC's coverage for the year kicks off with Kentucky. That's like Daytona for NASCAR. You got your biggest race. It's the first race on the schedule. They now cover that for more than 6 hours, and more than, I would say, at least 5 hours and 15 minutes of that coverage is just dead air. It's people covering hats and drinking and unrepentant public drunkenness and talking to people you don't know. So if they could tighten that up, because here's the thing, there's an awful lot of racing going on during the day. You watch, and I'm going to FanDuel TV, which used to be TVG TV, which we actually have on in the Brennan household constantly because Mrs. Brennan is a huge racing fan, huge. There are races that are going off every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. They have to show the excitement part, not the dead air part. And if they do that and they cover it more like the way NBC covers the Masters, the way NBC covers the majors and the Ryder Cup and everything like that, I think they've got a winner. The thinking that we're going to cover the everyday of the sport, nah, that's more like the poker circuit. The grinders are going to be hitting that. That's for the pros and the degenerates. But as far as like the broader public, it's a shame. It really is a shame that there wasn't more around the Breeders' Cup this past weekend. There was more done on some of the college football games than there was on the Breeders' Cup, and it really is a shame. The horse racing itself is absolutely electric. It's exciting. They just need to do a better job of rethinking the coverage to get the public's imagination in there and take the excitement, the things that makes like the Triple Crown exciting, and extend that to their calendar.
One quick correction. I'll be obnoxious here just in case we've got any fact checkers in the
God, here we go.
audience. CBS covering the Masters is what I think you meant there, Joe.
Oh,
But with
whatever.
that-
Jesus. I mean, network TV. Does anybody watch anything on a television anymore? I watch everything on a friggin' laptop computer or an iPad.
Fair point. Moving us right along, a jump ball for you guys. Churchill Downs' CEO commented last week that he'd fight back if prediction markets were to offer racing-related event contracts. Based on prediction markets' brazen attitude toward those who resist them, how inevitable is or isn't the collision course ahead? And how might prediction markets actually play a role in driving the aforementioned interest in racing from new audiences?
So can I offer the unlearned opinion before Adam offers the learned opinion? Horse racing would be lucky as hell if prediction markets started picking up, to be honest with you. They'd be exposing it to a big audience that has a lot of money. I think it would do more for their popularity. It would be accretive rather than sitting there and thinking like, hey, we're going to punch it out. This is one of the problems that you have with racing is that you have these warring tribes, essentially cartels, whether it's Stronach or Churchill or whatever. You do business with one, you're the mortal enemy of another. You know, right now, racing, we're in like year number 40 of how to rethink racing to reverse its decline. If prediction markets picked it up, I think that would be a really healthy sign for racing. And they ought to find, instead of saying like, hey, we're going to muscle up and fight you, they ought to be having, and I hope they really are having, and this is just the public stance for the folks over at Churchill, constructive discussions with the prediction guys, because it can only be good for their sport.
Adam, any quick thought on your end when it comes to the potential future of racing and prediction markets?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like they should be trying to work out a way. I mean, that's the way that all of them should be. Or you're not going to do every day. Kentucky Derby, they should start putting it up from now. They just had the juvenile races as potential runners from the weekend that will make it into the gates. I'd be a market maker in that. I'd be happy to provide liquidity if it's something that I can do, because I think that's it. To get ownership is what ultimately drives the racing. And you need to be honest to have a chance to at least get 80-85% of their money back, which right now it's probably closer to 60 to 70, if that in a lot of circumstances. I think that's the only way to do it. You need more eyeballs on it. You need it to be able to create the ownership aspect, and that way you need purses up. I mean, oddly enough, one of the conversations the last few days was they don't expect they'll be racing in California within 4 or 5 years. So it's definitely on the, the downward spiral. It's the cost of upkeeping tracks, all these kind of things. I think there'll be some variations or ways to sort of use it more as a betting product, because ultimately that's what it is. Everything's becoming a betting product, and Kelsey's just another vertical. So I'd be getting in bed with them. I'm sure they got some spare money that they can throw at a track or two to be able to offer the fixed odds or the futures in a way that the states aren't allowing it and the horsemen aren't allowing it and stuff like that, as they've been very brazen, very bully-ish of we're just going to do it. Probably a good time to do it and just get more eyeballs on it and have those verticals living in the Robin Hoods, the Coinbases and stuff like that. I mean, I'm all for predictions in a sense of, as long as they're staying within the realm, the prediction talks of casino games and parlays and all that. Like, just stay in your lane, buy and sell event contracts, work out how to tax it, or at least the leagues or something are doing. The NHL's worked it out. They've done a deal. I'm sure they're getting a big chunk of money out of the sponsorship. There's ways to do this. There's ways for everybody to get a piece of the pie. As Joe said, if you're Churchill Downs, the Twin Spires versus Stonic, and, those have been decade-long wars. It's time to sort of decide the betterment of a sport, which, again, I'm a horse guy. It's what I want to do. I have plenty of them. I run them, race them, breed them, all kinds of things, and I want to bet them. It's just looking for opportunities for people to enjoy it. Great days at the racetrack. I mean, it's the most fun thing to bet for me.
A bit of a hard pivot here from great days at the racetrack to a story that conjures memories from last week's top story, the latest scandal out of the NBA and its fallout, including some integrity concerns that may be misguided in that case. But this past week, integrity concerns came front and center at UFC 110 in Las Vegas. For context, at the weekend event, we had a heavy favorite lose under suspicious circumstances, leading to a flurry of calls for an official investigation, and the UFC terminating the contract of the fighter in question just 24 hours after the event. Joe, boxing has a long history of fight fixing and integrity issues, but the UFC thus far has largely escaped these issues. How would you expect an investigation to play out in this case using boxing as a point of reference?
It's not a great place to start. It's interesting that we're talking about boxing and horse racing. All we need to do is add professional rowing, and then we've got like the 19th century, late 19th century in America's 3 biggest betting sports. Oh my goodness. Let's for a moment grant that, okay, we don't know definitively whether this fighter threw a fight or not. I know it's very difficult because of the way, how many fights have we seen fixed in popular culture, in the movies, in TV shows, things like that. Boxing is the most cinematic of sports, and it seems like just about every other boxing movie involves a fixed fight. So it's very easy to very quickly default to, if there's an unusual result, that, well, yeah, the guy must have thrown the fight. And let's just wait and see how this plays out. I'm sympathetic to the athlete, having been a former boxer myself, because a lot of times it could be something simply a case of, somebody found out that this fighter, after making weight, couldn't, got sick, had fucking diarrhea, whatever it may be. And just that kind of news, that towel boy, masseuse news, makes it around, and you can see people wind up betting on that. Having said that, I'll tell you what, UFC has all the makings of a sport that is right for its participants to start seeing what they can do to earn more. UFC does not pay their fighters well. It is a blood sport where all the money, 90% of the money, it seems like, is going to Dana White and the people who own and produce UFC. It has been this way historically. It is criminal the way that they pay those fighters. Fighters that are famous, that you think, wow, those guys must be killing it, are making work-a-day wages. Okay, they are literally trading their blood and probably their brain cells for these guys. And the people who are making the most are the guys who never break a sweat, never catch a bruise, never get a cut, never take a punch. So in that regard, it is very much like boxing, and it's easy to understand why. And in that, it is tracking along the same way that other sports that are ripe for fixing are usually international leagues where the participants have low wages, right? Maybe no wages, and they're trying to find a way to be able to cash in on their performance. I really hope that government gets involved with UFC and other leagues in order to make sure that athletes are taken care of. They are not getting enough share of purses. And until they do, until they are better compensated, until they are better taken care of, particularly their health care, this is something that is going to be ripe for potential fixing. When you think about it, if you're a fighter, I am trading my brain and my blood in order to entertain these masses. And I'm not walking away with a whole heck of a lot. So for them, it's very much a rationalization that's easy to come to be able to do fixing and things like that. Do I blame cheaters? Yeah, it's not okay to cheat. I'm not letting anybody who cheats off the hook. But one of the reasons why there's the potential for cheating is the economics in this sport are so goddamn upside down, it's criminal and immoral, frankly.
And Adam, based on the reported line movement leading up to the fight in question, how warranted do you find this suspicion, and how do you size up the claims of impropriety against the data being presented?
Yeah, this one, I think it's hard to hide from. I've been very much on the side of integrity. This stuff comes up, you just fight through it. This is part of the game of regulating and oversight and things like that. We did get some pretty intelligent information about 45 minutes before this fight happened. We reduced the limits very low. I think we lost small because, again, we just saw the line movement, got a bit of information through a source that we use very much in the UFC, and just brought the limits down. I think generally they're like 5,000 or 10,000 in some spots to literally $300. So this might be one that they definitely need to look into a little further. From what the videos I've seen and a few other things, it does seem a very lackluster effort to try and hide something if the fighter was involved in this. This is why PASPA, repealed. This is why regulators are involved. This is why there's oversight, there's data, there's US integrity, there's all these kind of things to try and hammer out some of this stuff and see the bet data coming in and use people that actually know the business, know the industry, and know how to spot some wonky betting coming through, and then seeing an effort like that to say, hey, definitely investigate this one. It feels like there's something there. And that's sort of what part of the game is. We can look at anything across multiple industries where there's, some kind of rort or some kind of side hustle of taking advantage, whether it's credit card points or just different games that you can play in making money and fighting the integrity of different things. I'm sure, there's been times of the cigarettes coming cross borders or taking off the stickers or prohibition and all these kind of things. It happens. It's around. This one definitely smells bad. So I imagine they'll look into it and there'll be some, fire where that smoke is.
Well, bringing things full circle and shifting gears back to football to take us home this week, college football Week 11 and NFL Week 10 lines are now up. Adam, what's the most noteworthy action you've seen thus far?
Pittsburgh Steelers have seen some big action early, some master money on that at the +3, a tickle at the +3.5. I think it was the opposition to your team this week, the Steelers, seeing all that money. And we come in with the Chargers money hard last week. They didn't cover, but they did win. So maybe this money's on the wrong side as well, and you're safe here to get home. The other game, Buffalo Bills, seeing strong money coming in. The Saints and Panthers is the one that's getting unbelievable two-way action on that as well. The number 6, we're seeing some people buying it down to 5.5 and 5, and some going up to 7, 7.5, laying numbers. And the other one was the Falcons Colts. It's seeing good action, as well as the Broncos Raiders. So I looked at it early this morning. There wasn't much volume, but it seems like the last 2 or 3 hours they've started to show up again, and we're sort of seeing the plays come in.
I feel like when I ask you this question, we usually get somewhere between 1 and 3 games, and it sounded like you rattled off just about half the card right there. Is it safe to assume that this is a pretty hefty week of early cycle betting activity?
Yeah, it seems like there's a couple of games that are really one-sided, and the Masters, usually why they wait for the limits to come up a bit, have gone in pretty hard early. Maybe the limits went up a little quicker than what they have the past few weeks. But there's some really good two-way action on some of these games as well. So, there was a lot of conversation last week after 11-2 favorites. People going to play the favorites. And we said, look back at week 1 and 2 when there was all overs 1 week, all unders. This thing will swing. Sure enough, 8 and 5 underdogs. So maybe they've sort of worked out the pattern of no pattern, and they've sort of settled into what they're looking for early this week.
And with that, we will tie a bow around this episode. To the audience, we hope you've enjoyed this tour around the wide world of sports. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSuspects_, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.